This guy is the eldest son of a rich family. All the luxury and perks of being handsome and loaded at school are just normal for him. But one day, while he was walking, a lightning bolt struck him out of nowhere. He didn't die. A soul appeared and tried to steal his body. Fernan realized what was happening and used his mana to defend himself. Despite that, part of the spirit's soul merged with him. In that moment, memories from someone else flooded his mind, and strange texts appeared in his vision. They were like prophecies about 72 demons that would invade Earth and bring chaos to everyone. And now, the most terrifying part. It said that he, Fernand Pellenberg, would be kicked out of his family and become a beggar, completely broke. The world was going to be destroyed soon, but what really annoyed the protagonist was the fact that he would become poor. Since that day, Fernand hasn't stopped thinking about this during his classes. About the reason he has access to the world's future. A future where a young man named Aint would defeat the demons. But in that same future, he would become a beggar. Follow the story to see how he will escape this terrible fate.
The teacher finished off the soul, and Fernan wondered how he got those memories. But he found nothing along the way. The teacher finished off the soul, and Fernan wondered how he got those memories. But he found nothing along the way. The only certain thing was that there was a high chance of the prophecy being true, and it wasn't just a chance, but something coming from afar. Thanks to this, he managed to look ahead and make more money. The fact that the prophecy was coming meant that his Luna was too, and he needed to verify the truth of the prophecy. The secretary asked how the class was, and Fernan replied that it was always the same, but he accepted a bit of coffee, picking up a newspaper. His secretary asked if the young lord had been feeling unwell lately, but Fernan denied it. The employee replied that he seemed to have a lot on his mind, and the young master questioned since when he thought that way. He said that about 6 months ago, he started going out for a long time. The person he used to prioritize the investigation made strange choices as if possessed after being struck by lightning. Fernan said that these strange things might be the right ones in the end, until he noticed a name on the paper, that of Ain Armian, and was surprised that he had enrolled. His secretary asked if there was another source of information, but Fernan ran off quickly to head south. The servant wondered about the coffee while watching his boss leave. The Imperial Academy was a vast domain built in Bardian, an island located in the Imperial Sea, with immense lands created by magic, and the southern part had a marshy stream where Fernan decided he would check if the prophecy was real. Among the contents mentioned, there were 3 things that lingered in his mind, where all spoke of their horrible futures, infuriating Fernan. But he denied it, saying that it wasn't true. First, in the future where Fernan Fellenberg becomes a beggar. Second, the 72 demons of Solomon are summoned once again after millennia. And third, the future of Aint Armina, who would save the world by fighting against the beasts. He is a figure that the people of the Empire may not know, for he is a descendant of the founder of the Empire, Kalinus Armian, who founded the Empire with 5 surrounding kingdoms. Now, a millennium later, the fallen house has lost all its authority in the imperial family. The prophecy says that the descendant Ain Armian was the protagonist, where after finishing the exam, he ran to the swamp. That was written in detail, like a book. After seeing for himself if this bastard acted according to the prophecy, he would prove that it was true. Moreover, this bastard is not just the protagonist in the prophecy, but also a person directly related to his terrible future. What matters most is that he has no idea why he hates. Fernan could not read the entire content of the prophecy book and could only follow the general flow without understanding cause and effect. The superficial reason was that he joined the demon, but that doesn't even make sense. Aint was currently searching for a hidden dungeon in the swamp. Inside, there was a provision from the first emperor of the Armian family, a sword with his spirit. In the prophecy book, he was the most likely person to save the world and was a great hero, saying that if he didn't have the talent to fight demons, he would have crushed it long ago, until he noticed a smell of blood beside him, thinking that he was injured from an attack in the dungeon and his talent had not yet blossomed. A croaker was a predator in the swamp that was tough on its opponent. Fernan says it was as simple as the prophecy stated, but he thinks he should check inside until he notices something coming. He wonders why Aint was there and had not entered the dungeon yet. Fernan says it was a restricted area for newcomers. Aint asks how he knows him, and the protagonist replies that he knew the descendant of the Armian. Aint wants to know who he is too. The protagonist introduces himself as Fernan, but says he should call him Sunba while Aint recognizes him. But he agrees to call him that way, while Fernan questions if he ran away from a lizard. Aint replies that he encountered a croaker. Fernan throws a potion and warns that they were only reported once a year, so he was unlucky. But that was a potion of the highest grade, and it would be better to drink this than 10 vials of low level. Aint tries to say he can't pay, but Fernan corrects him to call him Sunba. But he mentions that he doesn't need money, because even though his family has fallen, he is still of imperial blood, so it should be called an investment, while Aint thinks he is not like the rumors, thanking his Sunba while Fernan thinks it would be a waste if it weren't for the prophecy, warning that he is lucky, since if there were someone else, he would be expelled for invading that place. So he must be careful from now on, and Ain't accepts his kindness. Fernan thinks he doesn't need to go back, but will hide by erasing his presence. A little while later, he followed Ain't to the dungeon. Fernan comments that it was really such a territory and Ain't must have completely cleared it. But the strange thing was having magical lamps, yet he could not feel mana there. Something was trying to absorb the mana around, and he wonders if they were semi-permanent lamps. Remembering that Ain't was a completely different image from the prophecy, and he could not trust his future in him. In the prophecy, Ain't entered the dungeon while injured and the shock of the fall left his body broken. He drank all remaining potions, but his wounds were severe, so Ain't continued walking, resisting the pain, until he saw something that caught his attention. At the end of the altar, there was a long sword that strangely gave him the feeling to take it. Ain't grabbed the sword, and at that moment a brilliant radiance pulled the cave from darkness. Fernan thinks it was weak enough to disappear, but left traces of magic. The mark in the middle of the altar, and Ain't who swept the dungeon without any injury. The whole situation was saying that the prophecy was real, which means that his future would really happen anyway. So he complains that he will become a beggar, and it was a crappy future this time. Ain't Armian, the protagonist of the prophecy and hero who protects the world from demons, and the one who would bring his downfall to the world. Ain't was still a rising star but had a completely different personality from him. He was the type who values honor more than material things. If approached carelessly, it could be an unexpected fire, so he wonders how to deal with it, saying it was a difficult problem, and his servant questions about it. Fernan tells Hyde that there was something on top that will definitely grow if he invests, then asks what he should do, and Hyde tells him not to hesitate. The young master complains that he has a personality that doesn't align, and Hyde doesn't care, because the Duke says that even personalities can align with money. Fernan thinks it was complicated to deal with demons and destruction. The difference in personality was little when faced with a lot of money. Anyway, he needs more information about Ain't, so he warns that he will find him now. His servant asks who since a guest was coming later, but he sighs as his master leaves. At the academy, the dormitories are assigned according to the entrance exam results, with 1 to 10 being Lepidus, the elite, from 11 to 30 being the extraordinary students, and below that was the Deegs dormitory, and the ego of the sword screams that name, claiming that a descendant of Armian was there instead of the top, and it was unbelievable. Even if the current emperor knew, he would rise from his tomb angry, but Ain't only questions why demons suddenly appear. The ego of the sword responds that it was something impossible unless they interfere. Ain't replies that he will not help with this as he is still weak, and the sword screams that it does not believe that. He says that honestly the first emperor was the true culprit as he abolished the imperial succession system, and changed it to elect the emperor among the 7 electors. He donated most of the lands of Armian to the empire and continued this for 100 years. The donated territory is no longer theirs, and over time they lost fortunes and their techniques over generations. Even being a candidate, given the circumstances, the emperor responds that he still has talent and will provide all resources to restore the glory. The current emperor also placed him there for a purpose. Fernan knocks on the door asking if Ain't was there, and the young man questions who it was. The protagonist says it was his son Bay. Ain't opens the door and asks what brings him there, while Fernan questions if he was busy. The swordsman says he has nothing important right now, and the protagonist mentions that he wants to take a walk with him. As it was very noisy there, he would like to go to a quieter place. Ain't asks him to wait 10 minutes to prepare and leave. Fernan complains that he was making his Sunba wait for 10 minutes and should discipline him, but Ain't asks for just 5 this time. The protagonist agrees and informs that he will wait in front of the dormitory. The soul of the first emperor questions what the hell this guy is. Ain't says he was the eldest son of the Fellenberg family, and the soul questions if he was from that rich family, as they had no right to be amazing making money, and the blonde wonders why he wants to see, and if he wants to charge for the potion while in the room. Fernan comments that he brought the sword. He replies that he has no bad intentions, and the protagonist understands, remembering that knights do not like to be away from their weapons. Thinking that he must be infused with the ego of Emperor Gardner, Ain't questions the reason for the invitation. Fernan replies that it was nothing and he was just thinking about dinner. The boy was free to ask for whatever he wanted, and Ain't tries to refuse as it seemed expensive. But Fernan insists not to refuse if he is offering, and so he accepts. The protagonist thinks he seems kind and innocent, but wants to know how he managed to deceive him in the prophecy. So he questions what the boy wants to do when he graduates from the academy, as normally they enroll to expand influence, but the Armian always developed their strength instead of socializing. So it was surprising to discover that someone from that family came to the academy, and Ain't replies that he was tired of being treated as a joke. The Armian family was still royal blood, even if only in name. That was the reason why he will restore his family's honor. Fernan thinks he has a lot of ambition and determination, proud of his lineage. He was not just a kind child. Fernan has a general idea of what kind of person he is, but he would sponsor him later. It was a good thing not to do it now. as it would have hurt the boy's pride since he prefers to lose his life than bow his head. His priority was to build loyalty and trust gradually until his time comes naturally. And when that happens, he will seize it like a fish, then extract everything he can to his side, and Hyde questions where his master has been. Fernan asks if he met with Birchev, and Hyde says he only met someone, as he summoned Luna and Birchev thanks to their laziness. Hyde recounts that he should have sent her back as he knew his master would arrive late but asked her to wait. Questioned if he would not intentionally crush his determination, but Fernan replies that it was easy to control that. Well, he put a lot of effort into the Birchevs, and that should work until he feels a pain. Hyde questions what is wrong with his young master. Fernan replies that it was nothing and sometimes his head hurts, until he notices something coming from the prophecy appearing now. A girl with incomparable blonde hair and a noble sword. In the prophecy, Ain't was watching her dance with the sword, then thinking that he would defend her even if her wings are broken at that moment. Those who hurt the girl were the Fellenberg family, and he has to free her from the shackles. Fernan thinks that this is the reason why Ain't hates him in the future, then curses the situation while the girl just waits for him. Hyde freezes thinking he was talking to him. Luna thinks about Fernan Fellenberg, because yesterday he deliberately left her waiting, but now he calls again. Then he complains that he was trying to defeat her spirit. Fernan watches through a window, thinking that he can feel the deep irritation and that the Birchev family is traditionally a count. It is a strong family guarding the north of the empire and one of the 7 electors of princes, but the waves of monsters have caused enormous damage. Their fortress was swept away along with their glory, and Birchev needed money to return. They sold their golden patent and their rights, and thus someone reached out to the Birchevs, the leader of the Fellenberg, his father. The Fellenberg have excellent magic, but their fencing is poor, even though they wish to improve, and this was the perfect opportunity. They escaped annihilation but were suffering annually, and think that if they push a little harder, they can break and unleash their magical fencing. Of all people, Luina was destined to be Ain't's love, thinking that this bastard wants everything from saving the world to love. Since she is connected with Ain't, he has to make sure not to hate him. Then he comments that the girl arrived early, but he apologizes for yesterday since he got distracted for a moment, and he didn't do it on purpose, while Luina responds that it is always the unhappy part that suffers injustices. Fernan complains that he didn't say that, and the girl accepts, but she questions why he called her there. Fernan replies that she must already know and thinks he should earn a favor from her. In phase 1 of the plan, he warns that there was a junction between the magic department and knights, but Luina refuses before he completes the sentence. Asked if he would lose to be her partner and wants to know why do that, since joining him is useless, and she has better options than someone ranked 10th. Fernan warns that if she maintains the partnership for 3 years, he will increase all accumulated interest, but on the condition of accepting him as a sponsor, and Luina questions the reason. Fernan explains that the junction was important, but the girl says that is not it. But he wants her not only as a partner, but also as a sponsored one, even being from the fencing department. Fernan responds that most of the money he sends to his family, and everyone knows he lives worse than most commoners. Sponsoring her doesn't mean anything special. He just wants to invest because she is talented, and Luina responds that nobles usually don't sponsor other nobles. Fernan reflects that she also values loyalty and honor, so he says that families share noble status. But that doesn't mean they are equal families, thinking that the honor of Birchev is greater, but cannot be compared to an ancient royal family. Luina questions if he was insulting her, and Fernan reflects that unlike Armian, it was a direct offense between families. Even if she hates it, she will accept, so he says it is not the time to be proud, since he didn't lie when he said she is talented. He saw her sword dance recently, and it was very noble and beautiful, thinking that she will not refuse someone who recognizes her talent. She questions what he means, and Fernan raises his hand, warning that he wouldn't forget this. Then he starts weaving many compliments, and Luina, embarrassed, tells him to stop. Fernan says he can't do that. Then he shouts that he couldn't find words to describe the perfection of her dance, making Luina agree to be his partner. In the room, her maid reads the sponsorship contract that will not be public. Most of the clauses end after graduation in exchange for her being his class partner for 3 years. Luina comments that the conditions are too good to refuse, and he said he saw potential in her sword dance as something supreme, noble, and lived. Moreover, he couldn't find words to describe the beauty of it, infuriating the maid. She complains that this money-obsessed maniac was trying something, but Luina tells her not to say that since he is still the heir of the Fellenberg. Her maid comments that this heir was trying to seduce her. Luina says she didn't feel that and it was suspicious, but she would help her family, so she will endure. The maid comments that she is ranked 2nd and Fernan was ranked 10th, until Hyde appears at the door saying that her young master wants to see her. He said he would wait in the training field and for her to come as soon as she could. The maid replies that she will ask her lady, and Luina wonders what he wants there, because she really can't imagine what he planned to do. Fernan reflects that she was ranked 2nd, and the best in the department was Alain Donards, who had never been defeated by her. but she has a talent to become one of the 10 best royal knights on the continent. He will find out as soon as possible if she has any hidden tricks. Luina approaches, saying she didn't understand what was happening and wants to know what it is. Fernan says he just wanted to show that he wasn't doing too badly compared to her, so she wouldn't think it was a useless partnership. Even if ranked among the top 10, she will acknowledge that he is quite skilled. But there was still a chasm between 2nd and 10th place. Fernan replies that he understands. Luina says that since he wants this, he should go ahead and prove it, for she would let him attack first, and Fernan draws his staff. Creating a stone magic above her, he begins to conjure. The fragments are launched at the swordswoman, but drawing her sword cuts them in half. Luina decides she will advance against the mage, cutting everything in her path to get there. She reflects that he was tearing up the training ground. Fernan creates a lightning magic this time, forcing Luina to cut again, but he was actually behind her, preparing a larger scale magic that destroyed everything in its path. Luina notices it was reinforced with all kinds of magic, and not even normal spells left such a mark. Then she realizes what Fernan wanted to show. He had been hiding his true power all this time. The entire battlefield levitates along with her. Lunia dodges, asking how he was conjuring multiple high-level spells this way, and wants to know how much mana this guy has. He definitely did not have the skill of a 10th place and completely underestimated his opponent, for at this point she was about to lose, or releases extreme energy from her strength. Fernan is impressed and smiles. Even the walls of the field are drawn in, and the final duel occurs between magic and Luina's fencing. She charges at Fernan, and his staff falls to the ground. The protagonist warns that he surrenders. Luina questions if he is provoking her, but the protagonist replies that he is not, and his mana has simply run out. A mage without mana cannot defeat a knight, and the girl thinks he was not pretending, for he has definitely run out of mana and cannot win in this state, and since she blocked all attacks, victory is hers. Wondering why she feels this bad feeling now, Fernan warns that he has something for her. Then he hands her a gift, saying it was a reward, and he heard she likes chocolate. It was made with whiskey from his family and was quite good, but if she doesn't like it, he can give her chocolate from the World Tree Frieding, or also the specialty of the Phrasia Kingdom, Krakenine chocolate. Luina questions if he checked her past, and Fernan replies that he didn't go that far for someone like her, but he just looked at the personal details of all the top 10 students. Luina comments that giving chocolate just for winning a duel is childish. Fernan jokes that he won't force her to take the gift, but the girl takes it from his hand. But she asks him to wait a moment before leaving, saying that he has enough mana to land brood attacks unilaterally and was forced to go to his limit, questioning why he pretended to be just a top 10 with such power. Fernan replies that a merchant does not walk into the spotlight. Back in the room, Hyde questions what happened there, for he completely broke his mana storage and amplifier, and Fernan replies that he dueled with Luina, and she is quite strong. But he was prepared and still lost everything. Not only that, but she spent all her mana, and Hyde questions how to use such precious items on that, and if she is really worth that much. The protagonist replies that it was an investment for the future and something like that, asking if it was a side effect of being hit by electricity. Fernan reflects that Aunt Armian did not judge wrong, and the fencing was indeed elegant, and he understands why it was something secret. Moreover, Luina definitely has talent and wonders why she never tried to take first place, and if it was because her equipment was of low level. Hyde questions what he will tell the Duke, for the secret fencing Birchev was highly sought after, and Fernan says he is a bit worried, but he questions if his father would disown him for that, and the secretary denies it, for he would probably take his life before that, and Fernan thinks he won't do that to his son for messing up his plans. In that case, he decided to first send a letter to his father about the matter, and has a vivid image of his collapse after reading it. Wild thoughts and anxiety took over Fernan, and he spent his time trying to ignore it. A few days later, a response finally came from his father. Fernan replies that it came faster than he thought, and Hyde says it finally happened. The protagonist questions if his father asked him to separate any message, but the secretary denies it, warning that he felt as if it were his last day serving the young master, and Fernan thinks it was not his fault, for he should be rejected thanks to Ain't for the crime of consorting with a demon. The incident was not particularly related to that, so it should be fine. He then says he needs to see his father now, thinking that he believed he was in a pact, but he cannot say that since he obtained the prophecy book. The secretary orders him to proceed as his grace was waiting, and Fernan reflects that he had no way to prove the existence of the prophetic book. If he tells the truth, his father will complain that a merchant has fallen into illusions, but he would be angry for trying to ruin their family. He needs to offer something at least to compensate for the loss of the Birchevs. His father comments that he seems more normal than expected, but he was wondering if he had used drugs or lost his mind, or if the demon that defeated the first emperor had taken over his son and should explain what he did. Fernan says he decided to make a better investment in Birchev. His father questions what could be better than secret fencing, but the son replies that he cannot tell. The family leader says it was not a request, and now he is a sinner trying to ruin the family's fortune, and Fernan responds that he is aware. But his thoughts have not changed, and if he trusts the birch matter to him, he will bring something better than secret fencing. His father says he would repeat it, wanting to know the source of his confidence. Fernan repeats that he cannot tell, and his father says it is absurd and that he did not teach him to be reckless. But he should know that it is not something that can be resolved just like that. And the protagonist responds that he has no choice but to mention the prophecy. He did not want to do this, but he has no choice, so he responds that it was not recklessness. In exchange for taking full responsibility for the matter, he will give all the information he knows and has a personal intelligence group. Yvonne responds that she doubts that, but he should proceed and asks him to share the information. Fernan says that to the east of the Eris Mountains in the territory of Viscount Donitz, there is an undiscovered crystal mine. His father comments that he has never heard of this and questions whether the intelligence group is better than children playing. Fernan responds that thanks to this, they were lucky to find a coin. This place in Eris is enough to cover all the losses of the Birchevs and still leave a profit, for it was the definition of a money mountain. Magic stones are minerals that contain mana, and that is why they are worth a lot of money. He has not seen it for himself and has no idea how big it is. But perhaps this buys some time, so he says that the Donard shipment went wrong due to the hurricane and their situation is not good. They can get their hands on the mine if they take advantage of the situation, and thinks it is better to reveal the prophecy slowly until it is discovered. Yvonne responds that if it is true, he can ignore the damage he caused but needs to verify his words first, and his son should focus on his studies, for he will call him back as soon as he gets the opportunity, and Fernan understands, thinking that he extinguished his anger and it seemed that his life expectancy had been shortened. Yvonne calls for Fernan as he was leaving. The young man responds and questions if he did something wrong, but his father warns that since he went there, they should have dinner together. The door closes, and Yvonne comments that he was a bit disappointed since the Black Turtle did not discover what Fernan found. His secretary apologizes and says he will check that again. Yvonne questions what he thinks of his son, and the secretary responds that he will be a respectable merchant. The father says he still has doubts about how he found out about this, and they should learn about his squad over time. Perhaps they specialize in ores. The secretary questions if it was the golden pillar, and Yvonne responds that Fernan knows the value of the ore. That was the reason for using earth magic even with a high affinity for fire. Of course, they should verify the information first, and the secretary says that perhaps their young master really has the golden pillar, for it would be possible to grow the organization beyond expectations if it is true, and Yvonne says he has always been interested. But it was truly extraordinary, and the secretary should also look into Luina Birchev and how she seduced his son. The secretary questions if they were in love, and Yvonne responds that there is no reason to invest in that. But he did so for no apparent reason, and it seemed that his eyes were enamored in youth. However, he has a feeling that this is not everything, wondering what on earth could make this boy who loves money more than his father. In another place, Fernan comments on Alia teaming up with Carlos Deneve, and Lunia confirms. The protagonist says that she originally ranked 4th in the department, but the girl responds that she was originally 5th. Fernan wants to know why they are partnering up and why it matters. Lunia says that everyone would find that out in the end, since they joined for money, and as expected, there is something to deal with. But it wasn't wrong. Fernan replies that it was really about money, and he truly loves that. But there is nothing more to gain with Lunia, thinking that she is not impressed by being called the money demon. And that was the reason for hating him more than anything. The protagonist tells her to take that, with an elixir and a coupon on the table. He explains that it was made from mandrake roots and the coupon was to buy a weapon from his company. Lunia says she can't afford that, but Fernan reminds her of the contract they made. She says that equipment made by the Golden Turtle was too much to be a gift, and judging by his reaction, it seemed he thought that way too, but Fernan denies it while thinking she was right. But the price of gaining a favor from Lunia and preventing a future of being a beggar was better, and she says she can't accept. The protagonist says that rejecting the sponsorship is a penalty of the contract, and she accepts. Fernan stands up and says he would see her in class, but there is something important now. Lunia reflects that even if it is sponsorship, it is still very expensive, wondering if there was a penalty clause in the contract, but there definitely wasn't. But she wants to know why give precious items and was trying to seduce him to steal his fencing, and she would never let him succeed in that. In his room, Fernan says that Ain't Armian must be at this lecture. Ain't warms up his arm while the protagonist reflects that it was a duel of the first year. It was something famous at this level with friendly duels, and according to the prophecy, Ain't who obtained the sword's ego started to win and became famous with the story of being a hero who would save the world becoming true. Someone approaches him asking what it was, to be able to see Fernan Fellenberg in that place. Fernan questions how his majesty is, and the prince replies that it has been a while since they considered. But he wants to know what brings him there and if there are any new students that catch his attention. Fernan says he has been keeping an eye on the rankings and questions him about it. And if he is there to see Ain't Armian, the prince says yes, and they are from the old imperial family. It is natural to be curious about a family that hasn't entered there for 100 years, and Fernan reflects that this was Ludger Schwaben, the second prince. They have been on the throne for generations since they were elected the imperial family. Although they share the same roots as the Armian, they now have a bad relationship. Moreover, Ludger values authority more than any Schwaben, so Ain't is a thorn in his side. Then Ludger says that he also seemed curious about him, until he notices that there is another one there named Verin Kalbunder. He entered the test and was the second best student this time, besides the Kalbunders trying to steal Armian's place as voters. Fernan reflects that it was a coincidence and wonders if their relationship starts there. For every epic hero, there is a villain trying to surpass the protagonist to grow. For Ain't the protagonist of the prophecy, Verin Kalbunder was the next antagonist. An instructor calls for Ain't and Andern, while Fernan reflects that Ludger and his servant Verin were in the same place at the beginning of the hero's journey, and he wonders if it was destiny, because it was something really interesting, and he must check now if the prophecy will prove that he was investing in Ain't on the right path. The instructor starts the duel, and Ant advances with long strides. Ain't takes notice and manages to block the blow. His rival uses mana on the sword for a clean cut, but Ain't dodges with an aerial acrobatic move, falling to the ground while breathing heavily. Ludger says he heard that this class randomly chooses dual partners, and Armian seemed unlucky, since Andern was the 10th place in the entrance exam, being a tough opponent for Ain't, who was in 38th place. To be unilaterally pressured, he didn't expect much from the 38th place, but since there was nothing more to see, he was leaving. Fernan replies that it didn't seem boring. Ain't prepares his sword with mana and makes a downward cut, cutting the collar of Anton's shirt in half with just that attack. Ludger and Verin are impressed to see that. Fernan reflects that he was caught off guard by the initial aggression, and the confusion shows that he is inexperienced. But as soon as he responds calmly, the tables turn. Anto murmurs that he was a guy who managed to secure 38th place, and he wouldn't lose to him, unleashing all his magical energy. A girl in the corner comments that Ain't was much better than she thought, but Anto will win. Ludger remarks that it was surprising for someone ranked 38th to be forcing the 10th to use aura, living up to his name. For someone without talent, he was trying quite hard, and Fernan reflects on that, because he had no chance as he lacked talent. Ain't blocks the sword strike and manages to counterattack, while Fernan reflects that this environment never supported him. But Ain't Armian was special. He was the chosen one by the prophecy, and the protagonist of this world as Ain't advances to Anto's back. The sword is thrown far away, and the young man falls to the ground. The instructor announces that the winner was Ain't Armian, who raises his shining sword. His classmates shout that Ain't really won the fight. Fernan reflects that, as expected, the prophecy was correct, and his choice was not wrong. He just needs to help Ain't grow and make him his ally. Then he will win Luina too. In another class, people wonder if they really made a pair and why Luina accepted. Fernan complains that they were getting too much attention, and his girlfriend comments that eventually, they will stop talking. He questions whether she used the elixir and changed her equipment, and if she liked it. Luin remembers that she was excited doing all of this, so she replies that it wasn't bad. A teacher approaches the classroom and asks if everyone is present. It seemed that everyone was fine with their pairs, and no one was late. She introduces herself as Professor Rosalia of Magic, and also introduces Professor Grad of Fencing. They started the lesson immediately, and everyone would receive maps from the assistants. The first activity was a practical exercise. Grad says there was no better way to show what they learned, and for now they would be thrown into the exercise field. This map he prepared had a marked destination, and they should arrive in about 3 hours. But they didn't need to go exactly on time or too late, as it would be exactly 4 hours from then. He then opens the floor for questions, and a student asks if it will reflect on their grades. Grad replies that it was the most important thing before the final exams, and another student questions about combat, with Rosalia warning of extra points. Thus, since there were no more questions, they would proceed immediately. Wishing good luck to everyone as Lunia and Fernan walk. The protagonist asks where they were, and the girl replies that they should interpret now, because first they should look at the map until they come face to face with a girl and a shy mage. Fernan says they were Jane Hux and Ned Palin, both in the top 70, and Lunina questions what they should do, because they weren't there to deal with 2 low-ranked leftovers. Fernan says that normally he would say something before walking away, but this time he will completely follow her decision, and Lunia says that's excellent, because first, they should secure bonus points, and they need to look at the map to find out where they are. Fernan questions if it wouldn't be easier just to use magic, and she asks if he will reveal their location. Ned whispers that it was his chance to run, but Lunia leaps in a graceful acrobatic move, warning that she needs bonus points, and they aren't going to run anywhere. Fernan complements the strike with his magic. Thus, they took them all down, and Fernan comments that there was a defensive spell on the map that the assistants left. The poster of Jane and Ned disappears, and Professor Grad says they were being eliminated faster than he expected. Rosalia comments that none of them were eliminated by monsters, and it was interesting to have conflicts. Grad asks if there is any pair she wanted to see, and Rosalia talks about Ludger and Alan, and Carlos Deneve with Elia Tortega. But the most interesting of all was the pair of Luina Berchev and Fernan Fellenberg. Grad comments that she was at a disadvantage for joining and wonders if it was for money since Fernan didn't seem to care about grades. Rosalia comments that this was another reason and it wasn't about grades. He could raise his grade whenever he wanted, even without pairing with Luina. Grad questions what she meant, and Rosalia explains that Fernan was always 10th. It was common for a student never to leave the top, but he didn't even leave 10th place, and his grades were perfect in theory, but he always lost points in practice. So she just assumed that he didn't like to show off, and Grad questions if he was hiding his energies. Rosalia confirms and tells that those who destroyed the battlefields were the two. Grad asks if it was those crazies, and no student had skills, and Rosalia comments that she was curious. The professor wants to know if it was about why he was hiding his abilities, but she denies it. Because I wanted to know the reason he stopped hiding, with Fernan on a rock saying that the marked place on the northern coast was right there, and it must be a mountainous desert, while Luina warns that it's over. But he wants to know about his side and where he was going. Fernan gets down from the rock saying they should go northwest and that there are some people too. Questioning if they should find the next pair on their way, Luina says they have plenty of time. A massive rock is materialized thanks to his staff. Someone approaches saying they finally met there, and calls for Fernan Fellenberg, while Lunia complains about Carlos Deneve trying to attack from behind. He questions what was unfair and if he forgot that the teacher talked about real practice, because he should let her go after they meet, as it should actually be fate. Lunia questions why he was angry, and Fernan replies that his pride was hurt by losing the pair, but it was really childish to do something like that, and Lunia comments that she belongs to no one. The protagonist jokes that his actions are very foolish, but Carlos tells him to cut that out. Both continue saying it would be better to score more points by capturing strong people, but they can't just wait. Fernan says he will help her, so she should feel free to go all out, and Lunia tells him not to get in her way, because they don't even coordinate their movements, but they don't have that kind of support. Fernan says that a duo fighting separately is pointless, but he starts lifting dozens of rocks while telling her not to worry. They begin to circle that duo, and the protagonist tells her to trust him. In the room, Rosalia comments that a big fight is about to happen, and it's in the deserted area of the mountain, and Grad questions if they have already defeated the monsters. The teacher says they don't appear in that area and they should look closely. Grad comments that there are two pairs the teacher mentioned, and it would be perfect. But would they be able to see the true abilities of Fernan Fellenberg? During the combat, Fernan uses his magic to provide support and allow Lunia to advance while the opposing duo does the same. She wonders what this is because her body feels lighter than before, and if it's Fernan's support magic, as he is invoking it in her while moving. Fernan winks saying it's amazing and infuriates Luina. Elia tries a slash, but the girl dodges with a jump. She thinks she doesn't have time to get distracted and first has to get rid of the girl, clashing her weapon with the other girl. Luina tries to pressure her with all her strength. Carlos casts a lightning spell that flies toward her. Luina notices this while enveloping her sword. Realizing that her body wasn't moving anymore, Elia smiles saying she captured her, but Luina complains that it's nothing, because if she just puts her aura out while her enemy advances, but a rock prevents the blow from getting closer, and Carlos questions what happened. Luina suddenly appears next to Fernan and is surprised. The protagonist replies that it's magic and his family developed it recently, where they exchange things that have the same weight of place. Luina questions how he knows her weight, but Fernan tells her it was written in the student report. She dodges the blow, commenting that the rock seemed heavy, but it wasn't that much, and she would hear more about this later, besides that she would burn that student record. Fernan complains that this will take her life if she doesn't hold it correctly and move gently. Lunia says she will take care of Elia, so he should focus on blocking Carlos, and Fernan complains that he had to roll on the ground several times, until he sees a magic circle in the sky. Fernan comments that he's wondering why Carlos doesn't use this, thinking that his specialty is summoning lightning, a massive pillar of light that gathers dozens of lightning bolts at the same time and is more destructive than that student. For this reason, he is the best, so he warns that he needs to research how to block this. Then he takes out 2 balls, warning that he will see how effective this is. Fernan uses his magic and begins to gather mana. Carlos was completely focused on his multiple concentration. That blow is drawn toward the protagonist, hitting once again. The smoke begins to dissolve slowly, but Fernan comes out of there with a smile on his face. Carlos questions how he managed to block that blow. Fernan throws the balls, saying it's a device that absorbs mana to store it, and he modified it a bit, but even though it's expensive to make, it seems effective. If refined more, it would be a production success and would be good to sell on the market, while Carlos shouts that using an artifact is cowardice. Fernan questions what cowardice is and says it's real practice, just like the teacher said. So Luina, making Carlos turn to his teammate, the protagonist orders her to finish it, and thus the girl prepares herself, making a cut using her aura against Alia. From a distance, Ludger and his colleague observe the fight. The prince comments that only 2 out of 4 remain, and Alan says that the assistants will send him to his destination. There was no mage among the students who could block Carlos' magic. Ludger says that Fernan and Birchev had enough power, and the boy will no longer hide his strength. He has no chance of keeping up with Birchev's pace, who is obsessed with grades, and if Fernan uses his true abilities, the rank increases. His circle was full of people who would jump at him if his rank fell, so he cannot let him become a potential rival. And just as he followed him to safety, as promised, he will raise his level in the test. This pair had been eliminated before him. Luina Birchev and Fernan Fillenberg should be captured. The duo cuts a troll in half with their strength. Luina comments that they were close to their destination and the monsters were appearing, so they would arrive first at this point. But Fernan seemed to ignore her while absorbing the troll's body. She asks if it was really necessary, and Fernan explains that troll blood was a key item for his potions. The girl comments that she knows this, but compared to her wealth, it was nothing, and that was why they called him a maniac. Fernan says he managed to recruit her thanks to that, and she tells him to keep moving. But there were only 8 pairs left, and the boy jokes that she got lost on the points. Luina says she still has a good reason why she should be the best student. She calls him, and Fernan says he felt it too, and there were at least 20 people, and he felt as if they were all aiming at them, with the pairs advancing. Fernan and Luina manage to fight them with their strengths. Alan rushes towards the girl with all his speed. He prepares to strike while Luina recognizes him. Both collide their weapons with all their might, being repelled thanks to the opposing forces. Then they advance once again towards each other. Both emanate their energies and clash their swords once more. From afar, Ludger levitates, gathering a fireball with his mana, but his magic is prevented from being invoked thanks to Fernan's earth power. Ludger uses support magic on Alan, while facing Fernan, using all his mana. Both spells collide as well. A massive explosion occurs in the combat area with all its force. Ludger comments that he was just going to stay back and watch, but they came and eliminated half of those following him in the blink of an eye. And if he really was going to do that, it doesn't seem like Fernan, who responds that he just wanted to secure first place this time. Ludger says that won't happen and they should settle things peacefully instead. And he knows there is less than an hour remaining. If they fight now, none of them will check, and he questions about him and Alan taking first place, because it would be a victory for everyone if they came in second, and he questions about it. Lunia responds that she prefers to lose in a fight than give up first place, and Fernan agrees. Ludger says that the negotiations have failed after all. Then he unleashes fire magic, saying he wants to see what Fernan has. The protagonist replies that he can't wait for that moment, surprising the prince. A magic circle envelops them from below, levitating the earth. Fernan's magic was enough to change the entire landscape of that world, and the boys scream that it was a trap and they must flee. The stones come together, trapping Alan and Ludger. Fernan questions if they should walk while Lunia seems impressed. She asks why he didn't use that trick earlier, walking towards the designated area. With the end of the test, Grad congratulates the good work and says he will announce the ranks. In first place were Luina Birchev and Fernan Fillenberg. In second place were Ludger Schwaben and Alan Denneritz. Fernan says that at least they made it, and Lunia comments that both were good and couldn't defeat Alan. Honestly, he didn't expect them to end up on top, and Fernan says it was first place even if they didn't defeat anyone. Lunia says it was her first time being there, and it was truly something incredible. Grad tells them that this concludes the test, and they will return to the academy quickly, so they should stay close without leaving. Lunia asks if he knows the newcomer Ain't Armian and mentions that she met him the other night. Fernan questions if she met him, and the girl says she saw him while training, and he was interesting, because it was similar to when he secretly watched him doing the sword dance, making Fernan feel a headache. Lunia questions what that was. The protagonist feels the prophecy coming and says that another part has been revealed. Then he wonders what was happening and if the story has changed this time. Ain't shouts at the girl questioning what she was doing. Lunia replies that she did not become his knight this time, but fighting was her destiny and being the shield that protects him. Thus, she advanced towards the demon Andromalius, and Fernan wonders if it was changing again. Lunia wakes up in the hospital, and Ain't says he brought her there, crying while complaining that those bastards tried to bring down the Birchev family, and it was the fault of the rich kids called Fellenberg. Fernan gets furious thinking that he was bold to speak like that to his Sunba, until he returns to his reality for a second. Lunia asks if he is okay as he collapsed suddenly and wants to know if he is sick. The protagonist replies that he is really fine. Rosalia questions if he should go to the infirmary, and Grad says he must be stronger than himself. Fernan thinks that Ain't Armian began to see him as an enemy from that point on, but he wants to know why suddenly there was another prophecy, and it was all about Luina again. Andromalius was one of the 72 demons that descended to the world in the near future. In the carriage, Hyde congratulates him on the good work and says he heard he was in first place. Fernan tells him that he used tons of energy, and Hyde tells him to sleep because he will wake him when they arrive in Labadus. The carriage continues moving along. Fernan reflects on Andromalius, the 72nd demon with black hair and eyes, in the form of a man with a serpent coiled around his right arm, and no matter how much he researched, it was all he found. On that day and age, the existence of demons was mystical, as they were swept away by the Emperor without showing themselves to the world again. Without information, Ain't would take care of everyone, so it was not problematic. But Luina was seriously injured during the battle. Fernan wonders if he should tell her and if she will believe it, reflecting that he tried to bring her before, with Luina questioning if he was okay. The protagonist replies he wants to know if she believes in demons, and she questions the reason for this topic. Fernan says she should just answer, and Luina confirms because it was part of the history there. She says she also heard that they still exist in this land to this day, but she asks if he hit his head during training, and Fernan thinks she just treated him like a madman, and if she just put her hands on the trace of a demon, she could convince. Exactly 1 month from today, during the first year night class training, Ain't would defeat Varen Calburden, the second best student, and after that, no one could face him, besides the enemy losing many things, from his reputation, his honor to his support behind. In the end, Calburden was possessed by a demon, and at that moment, a demon makes its first appearance indirectly. And if he uses this incident well, it could be easier to persuade people for his help. But since it would be clear evidence, he could use it as a foundation to expand his plans. The problem was that he did not know where and how he would be possessed, wondering why he could not see the other parts, and it was annoying. Ain't reads the newspaper saying it was expected by Filenberg, and Birchev is still prestigious even with its military rights, and the ego says it was all thanks to her, and Filenberg did nothing. But he should not compare the two families, as the only knight who stayed by his side was Birchev. Ain't says that these days, people value the Filenbergs more, and the ego complains that it was the end of days, and if it were not for the damages of war, he would never have associated with those guys. But he remembers that Ain't could ask him for money, because that boy was really kind to him. Filenberg must want to establish a connection with Armian, and they never say openly what they want and will make him lower his guard. Ain't questions if Fernan appeared for strange reasons and his family was ruined, so it doesn't even make sense. The ego questions why he was cursing himself and says that the reasons do not matter. Ain't says he did not think Fernan was being kind because he wanted something. When he came the first time, he gave him a potion when he saw him hurt by a monster. He definitely did not have calculating eyes and was genuinely worried about him. Asking for money from someone was something without honor, and trust is not bought with money. The ego screams that it was totally frustrating. Even the previous emperor said he had great financial support, but he could not even buy a meal. The Filenbergs are not the type to offer something out of pure kindness, and he should stop talking and go with him. Going to the dormitory and asking if he can meet with him now. Hyde says that his young master takes care of the merchant guild while studying and is very busy. Ain't apologizes and says he is not a visitor, but Ain't Armian who came to see him. The secretary says he mentioned this, but he was busy and should return, and Ain't says he understands, commenting with ego that he would give money if he were waiting. But Sunbei was busy and ended up disturbing him. Fernan reflects that it was unexpected, and the bait was not seasoned enough yet. Hyde enters the room saying that as instructed, he sent Ain't back, but he wants to know why he sent him back if he has been keeping an eye on him, and Fernan replies that it was strange to go see him and the purpose is the same. It was probably the same for Ain't, but it makes it stranger since he cannot help. He sent him back because he had the feeling that he didn't really want to come and will attract him when he truly trusts. Hyde asks if it was necessary to go so far for a descendant of a fallen family. Fernan replies that he had many qualities and was a talent that would be of great help. Hyde asks if he will lose him if he sends him back today, and Fernan says he has an opening. Then he should go to the subordinate families to collect all elixirs. Hyde says it is very expensive, and giving something to him is a considerable loss. Fernan says he would give something more expensive, and it has nothing to do with money. And if he doesn't do this, it means he doesn't have enough money. At home, Ain't questions if he met the butler of the Filenberg family. Ego complains that he apologized for sending him away, and Ain't recounts that he gave this box with a note. But he wants to see what kind of apology it was. Ain't raids that it was an elixir made for him, so he should accept it. Ego complains that this bastard ends every sentence with Sunbei to mock him. Ain't notices what that elixir was and gets startled. Ego asks what it is, saying that it was a holy bird's heart, perfect for the Armian swordsmanship that withstands the power of light. This guy Fernan was really thoughtful, and it was good to see him later. Ain't says he can't believe someone like him can like him so much, and will work harder to meet his Sunbei's expectations. A few days later, Fernan questions what the result was. Hyde says that Ain't defeated Varen Calbunder. His swordsmanship was a bit better, but Armin's aura overshadowed his skill, and Fernan thinks the prophecy will happen again. He questions if it was thanks to the elixir he gave him, and Fernan tells him it had some effect. Hyde says it seemed like Armian would win even without the elixir. Fernan says it is something no one can know and thinks the prophecy says that Ain't defeated Varen. Then he was possessed by a demon, and it was a perfect opportunity to find proof that it exists. Fernan tells Hyde to keep an eye on Varen for a while. He confirms to watch the places he visits, even the people he contacts and the conversations. Fernan needs to know everything about him. 2 weeks passed since he started observing Varen, but nothing happened. Something was not right, and something bigger was happening now. But he wants to know if Hyde was being lazy. The most important part of the prophecy was about the demon, and if this part is easy, he will consider what he should believe. After being defeated by Ain't, he gathered his frustration and found him again at the mid-year exam. The winner of the fight had already been decided, and Ain't was no longer careless against someone he had already faced. With the ego of the former emperor, he only had advantages. Ain't, who left Varen fallen behind, did not know. The demonic energy would begin to seep out and take over his body and mind. Fernan suddenly wakes up thinking about this. He wonders if it was morning and must have slept better, but he was seeing prophecies while sleeping now. Still, he finds the exact moment when Varen is possessed by the demon, and it was after losing to Ain't in the exam. The day of the knight's midterm exam was today, making him anxious. Hyde says that his young master woke up early and should eat first. Fernan says it is the perfect time, preparing his equipment. Then he mentions that he will observe the first-year exam and needs an escort, and Hyde says he was summoned by the Duke, so he will go later. Fernan warns that he will take someone else in his place. Hyde questions who, as he has no friends. The protagonist says it is a friend he bought with money, going to visit Lunia. She says she is busy studying for the tests, and Fernan tells her that this is why he needs to go. But if she comes with him, it will increase their debt for a few months after graduation, and she decides that she will. Questioning where the place is, Fernan says it was in the deserted mountainous region. She complains that this place is now used for exams, and it will be a violation of other rules if students from other years go. Fernan replies that he can allow it with money, and she comments that he seemed like someone without a brain. But the one who brought them was Professor Grad, and the protagonist responds that he was flexible. Lunia says she will go back to the dorms. Fernan shouts that they won't get caught breaking the rules and she should keep her word. The girl responds that it wasn't that and she just forgot to bring her sword. The boy asks her to go quickly while he waits. With an invisibility cloak, Fernan whispers that he needs to hide his presence from the teachers and assistants so they don't find out. He should bribe Grad, but that would be a problem, and Lunia replies that he should know that. Doing something without knowing was worse, and Fernan says she was a good girl and should keep going. But he would wait there as he would check where they needed to go, thinking that Ain't was currently in second place. He was very close to Varen, who was third, and wonders if they had already fought. Then he decides to follow that path, and Lunia complains that it was against the rules for a student to have a professor's map. Fernan just tells her to follow quietly until he feels something. She wonders if it was a monster screaming. Then they hear the scream once more. Lunia says she will check because there are many freshmen around. She keeps running, and Fernan says it was dangerous to go alone. The boy follows her down the path. Lunia comments that the boy seems unconscious and was attacked by a monster, but thanks to defensive magic, he had no injuries. But it was strange because the monsters of this era were not usually fierce. Fernan thinks it started earlier than he thought, and he wasn't able to check Viren's condition. Then he feels a pressure, and Lunia questions what in the world was happening there, with a huge explosion in front of her. She turns her gaze, coming face to face with a troll running towards her. The girl manages to sever the troll's arm with her sword. The troll gets up and charges again. Lunia wonders why it wasn't stopping even after having its arm severed, but a rock hits it from behind. Fernan had used his magic to create stone spikes, launching them against the troll's back. Lunia jumps to a tree and clings vertically, dodging as the troll strikes again. Then she keeps her foot on the ground, questioning Fernan about what that was, and the protagonist replies that it was a berserk that doesn't feel pain. This type of monster was on another level, and the only way to defeat it is to separate the head. Lunia asks what made it go berserk, and Fernan reflects that the prophecy spoke of the demon. While the instructors and professors were dealing with the anomaly, Varen attacked Ain't with his power. In drama, at any moment facing a crisis, problems appear simultaneously. He prepares his staff, saying that for now, they will deal with this bastard. The map disintegrates while elsewhere Varen falls to the ground, complaining that he lost again, while Ain't turns to leave and he tries to restrain him. Armian responds that it's over and the match has been decided. The word of being defeated echoes in Varen's mind. He thinks he has already failed the expectations of the prince and his family. If this goes wrong, he will lose his position as heir. Then he clenches his fist, saying he needs to defeat Ain't Armian. He rises from the ground and charges at Ain't with all his strength. The protagonist turns with a smile to deal with the possessed Varen, making some sword movements and managing to cut him. The sword's ego wonders what he wanted to achieve by advancing this way instead of accepting defeat with honor. He was a bastard who lost his chivalry and just orders to take his life, but Ain't denies it. Gardner complains that he was a worm who will tarnish the honor of knights. The boy responds that it's not a real fight and they should leave. Fernan and Lunia finally manage to defeat the berserk. The girl says she needs to forget about the elixir and get out of this fight that wasn't theirs. Fernan complains that he can't decide and they will cut through the horde of monsters, and Lunia calls him crazy. The protagonist comments that she should know it's not hard to defeat a berserker. Lunia questions if he anticipated this and said he needed an escort, but Fernan denies it. The girl says it doesn't matter how much she thought, but the elixir was no longer more important than him, but the boy responds that it was, thus fleeing far away while shouting that it was much more important. In another place, Lunia questions if this was the place of the cursed elixir. Fernan reflects that it seemed the fight with Ain't was already over. Lunia notices Varen's body, and the protagonist tells her not to approach. She moves closer and says it was Kalbunder and wants to know who did this to him. It seemed he fainted while fighting, and she wants to help him, so Fernan should help, but the protagonist says no and that she should stay back. The girl responds that she can't leave a collapsed person behind, and they should move him to a safer place, but Varen suddenly gets up. Lunia feels what is happening and instinctively steps back. She says that this aura was something she had never seen before, wondering if it was really Varen Kalbunder. Fernan replies that it is demonic energy, and the girl questions this. The protagonist responds that this bastard was possessed by a demon. Observing Varen in his state of unconsciousness, Fernan reflects that according to the prophecy, once possessed, he would go to Ain't as soon as he woke up. But it seemed the target had changed, with Lunia repeating that a demon had appeared there, and she wants to know how he knows this, while Fernan reflects that through his eyes, he has already lost everything. The girl responds that they must subdue Kalbunder first, but the protagonist touches Lunia's shoulder, warning her to just wait for 10 minutes. She turns around but doesn't find the protagonist behind her. Varen lunges at the girl. She dodges, trying to bring him back to consciousness. Varen makes some slashes with his sword filled with demonic aura, being defended and pressured by Lunia. She reflects that he was strong and at this point she would lose, so she uses her aura to repel Varen away. The demon falls to the ground, and she advances with a knee strike to his chest, screaming for Varen to come back to himself. The demon just screams several times. Then he grabs his sword and swings it in a cut that Lunia dodges. The demonic aura takes over the boy's body again. Lunia draws her sword, now surrounded by energy. Varen charges, and both collide their forces. An impressive exchange of blows occurs, and an explosion between the two energies fills the area. Lunia steps back, thinking that her aura was fading quickly due to the demonic energy, and wonders what she should do, as at this point her aura would run out. But it didn't seem there was another way, until she notices something in Varen. Lunia calls for Fernan, who shouts for Lunia to come to him. Varen turns and makes a strange groan, but the swordswoman steps on his head while running over. Fernan says it was that way and they must go quickly, while Lunia questions what he was doing showing up now, and what on earth made him run, while Fernan replies that it was a demon. Lunia screams that he ran to save his own life and abandoned her. Fernan denies it, warning that he set a trap because he wasn't someone easy to defeat. It was close to the time he would fall into it, with Varen stepping into a place full of mana. Stones begin to rise from the ground at an immense speed. A magic circle appears in the sky and traps Varen in the air. Fire erupts from the magic, starting to shoot at the demon repeatedly. Lunia says they didn't need to go that far and questions what if Kalbunder loses his life. Fernan repeats that it won't happen and tells her to observe that, because it was as if they had only made him angrier, with Varen releasing more energy. Lunia says she noticed something while fighting, but Fernan complains that he didn't want to use that, taking out a mana crystal and starting to conjure some kind of energy. Fire begins to envelop the demon once again. The mage finishes his spell conjuration, with a flaming pillar surrounding the demon afterward. Varen falls to the ground immediately after this blow. Fernan says it worked and the operation was a success. Lunia questions if it wasn't a waste to use such expensive items, and the boy says the situation doesn't help. The girl recounts that if they had worked together, they could have defeated him without those things, but Fernan replies that the demonic energy was too much. Lunia says it certainly seemed capable of destroying the world, but he is still Varen Kalbunder. The protagonist becomes aware of what he just did, because it was true that Ain't was the hero who would save the world, but he still hadn't awakened his powers. Based on the current point, Lunia is naturally stronger than him. He became so fixated on the word demon that he forgot something important and spent too much to set the traps. Lunia says that Fernan lost focus in his eyes. The protagonist just repeats how much it costs to do that while the demon rises. He lunges with a jump, but is struck in the face by Fernan. Then he falls to the ground unconscious, with the protagonist calling him a wasted demon. Sometime later, Varen sees what happened and asks if it really is him, for he could not be sure, and Fernan replies that the recording sphere resembles the exact scene that it was. But there was no way to have forged this. Varen responds that he remembers nothing after fighting. Fernan replies that after losing his head, he was possessed and attacked them. But Varen complains that he has never met a demon. The protagonist says that he must know since he was watching. For he was hit hard on the ground, dozens of magical arrows struck his body, and a pillar of hellfire burned him. The fact that he is alive is only due to the demonic energy protected in his body. They used many things trying to stop him, and Varen says he will pay for them. But the protagonist pretends to have intense mental trauma, and Varen says he understands. Fernan says he just needs to do the simple thing, having him sign there, and all of this would be hidden. Varen questions if it is not just a slave contract, and no matter how much he looked, the terms were bad. Fernan replies that he does not appreciate kindness to resolve this and has no choice but to deal with it. He will have to hand over the recordings to the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors are an organization directly under the Emperor that deals with demons. Below the Great Cause, they held absolute power, and now, after 1,000 years, they are just a figurative organization. Fernan complains that they have a chance to return to the light and will want the sphere. Varen shouts that it really has nothing to do with demons. The protagonist responds that he would naturally be expelled from the academy, and the Marquis would expel his son who sold his soul. Varen signs the slay contract and says he is in the hands of the Sunbay. Outside, Lunia questions if it is okay to just handle it this way, and it would be better to inform the teachers. Fernan replies that it is not the time. Even if Varen becomes a demon or is manipulated, the reason has not been understood yet, and if he is being controlled by someone, it means there is something in the academy invoking demons. If this incident goes public, they can stay quiet, and it will be harder to find them. Luina says he was planning to investigate this and questions why the targets are students. Fernan replies that the academy holds the greatest talents. The girl adds that it is the same as destroying the future of the Empire, and she can be called if help is needed to exterminate demons at any time. Fernan reflects that it is incredible, and for now, he cannot offer something for free and will probably only realize later how foolish the promise she made was. The teachers and assistants were called to stop the horde of monsters, and the midterm exam was cancelled, but there was no way to cancel it by himself. All exams of the average semester were replaced by written tests, since the Academy's grades are originally divided into skills and written tests. For students who have focused on practical tests, written exams can be considered punishment, and Ain't was no exception to this rule. The ego says that no matter how much he thought, there was still something strange. The Order of Monsters before was definitely the work of a demon with a spark of demonic energy, but the creature never appeared, and Ain't questions if it does not mean he is wrong. The ego screams that demons will appear again, and precisely that was the reason the first emperor was there. The demons would gradually be aiming at him. Ain't questions the reason, and the ego questions if he does not know. And it is because of the name Armian engraved in his bones, and if it were not for them, the demons would have the world in their hands, so he should never lower his guard under his leadership, and Ain't feels uneasy knowing that he attracts them. At the same time, in the Labadus Hall, Fernan screams because his head is about to explode. Hyde questions what is wrong with his young master. Fernan receives a prophecy with Ain't running towards the southern forest. He enters a cave and finally finds something, a spiritual beast acting as a master, and it was too much for him to handle. With the fall of the beast, the area behind collapsed, and the mithril ore was revealed among them. Both are extremely happy to find the ore vein. The sword was also blessed by mana, and its soul can inhabit it. Fernan suddenly wakes up and repeats about the metal that holds the soul. Elsewhere, Lunia says that the last time he talked about a spiritual potion, and now it is an herb. Fernan says that last time it was a lie, but now it is true, and Lunia complains that they will miss class for a week. The protagonist responds about preparing his class, and will take care of it. The girl denies it, but he says he will increase interest, being refused again. Lunia says she doesn't know about other things, but she can't miss class. Fernan says he will ask for someone and she shouldn't do that. A person enters the room and says it has been a while since he saw his brother Fernan, and all the blessings of the mana should be with him today. Lunia recognizes him as Jace Vines, and the young man says that his Hyung was not alone, but he welcomes her and wishes her blessings. Then he asks if his Hyung was doing well, and Fernan says everything was normal, and wants to know about his academic life. Jace says he is still in his first year and has a lot to learn, while Lunia seems confused, questioning if the two are very close. Fernan replies that she seems surprised, and Jace says it was something natural. Lunia denies this, as Jace Vines was the saint of the Church of the Dragon God. The saint that everyone worshipped was associated with someone greedy for money, and Jace says that maybe she doesn't know since she is not a mage. But the Church of the Dragon God worshipped the elder who gifted magic to humanity, and now worships the mana and magic itself. Most of the followers are mages because of this, and they have become a powerful organization, To be an archmage, one must be recognized by the Pope. Lunia says she knows this but wants to know what it has to do with being close. Jace says that since his church was founded by mages, they needed a lot of funds. The Fellenbergs are the biggest supporters of the church, with countless items created by the Merchant Guild. So it was like saying that the rich man is your elder, and Fernan jokes that he is still older than him. Lunia asks if he really is the saint. Jace jokes that this kind of thing really hurts even him, but she changes her mind saying it was just a joke. She understands about the relationship now and will be on her way. Jace questions if she was already leaving since he had just arrived, and Lunia says she doesn't plan to get involved in this. If she changes her mind, she is free to come back, and the saint blesses her as she leaves. When she leaves, Jace questions the reason for calling him, and the protagonist replies that he needs help gathering spiritual herbs. The saint is impressed by this, and Fernan questions if he was planning to steal for himself, but Jace denies it, questioning if he really needs to gather this during training, and with his skills, he could go ahead and get it easily. Fernan replies that he did everything he could but unfortunately didn't have the correct location yet. Technically, the information from the prophecy was enough to locate it, and there are 7 lakes in the southern forest. He has been gathering mana from the bottom of all 7 lakes to find the vein, but hasn't found any mithril. It was clear that the cave was magically hidden, and it was annoying to do this. Jace says that students not involved are prohibited from entering, and there are many around, but Fernan warns that this was the reason he signed up to be an assistant. The young man repeats this and says that the requirements are a bit strict. It is uncommon for a second-year student to help, and Fernan replies that it is not against the rules, and he managed to. Jace says that merchants are impressive and the plan is good, so if he promises to give a lot of money, the saint will join. Fernan thinks he is a bastard while Jace shows a contract. Instead of training, the ego says he will plan once more with the spiritual herbs near Lake Farden in the east. He needs to make it seem like a coincidence, so first they should just walk around, until he questions if Ain't was paying attention, and he replies that his Sunbae was there. He seemed to be an assistant too, and the ego responds that there is no money involved. Ain't says he probably wants some extra points, so he calls the Sunba. But Grad interrupts, warning that training starts in 30 minutes and the assistants must take their positions. The young man complains that he usually wanted to meet with his Sunba. Elsewhere, Jace warns that he dressed the doll, and now his brother must give a bit of his blood and mana. The protagonist pours a few drops on the doll, and it takes on his appearance. Jace comments that it looks convincing and was at the top of his class, just as he knows. He used his spell all the time to escape from the Pope, and Fernan questions this. Jace says it was obvious that he didn't, and he is a legendary mage who cannot be deceived. But it took him a few hours to realize, and even now he is not sure. Fernan stands up thinking it is good enough, and reflects that to confuse the greatest mage in the world, he is a genius. He would be a great help to Ain't in the future, but strangely he is not mentioned in the prophecy, and he is talented. Besides being a member of the Church of the Dragon God, it is natural for humans to hate demons, and the Church specifically has disgust for them. The blasphemy that some demon uttered really irritated the Church. After that point, when demons appeared, the Church became practically insane and transformed into an anti-demon cult, so he could end up as Ain's ally one day, and Jace says he should return in 5 hours. Fernan understands and warns that he was counting on him. He jumps through the trees, spying on Ain't, while reflecting that he was leading the way and only had a lake on the eastern side of Lake Farden. Then he warns that it was his turn now. He should do exactly what his Sunba commanded. Ain't notices the one in front of him and repeats about seeing Varen Kalbunder before him. He asks if he would try again, but he knows he can't, and Varen reflects that he is aware and does not plan to appear pathetic, remembering Fernan asking to join Ain't during training, which was completely terrifying. Varen says he did not accept defeat, and Ain't questions if 2 times were not enough. The swordsman replies that it doesn't matter if it was 2 or 100 times. He lost his reputation, so now he will fight to regain his honor. The ego says that the spirit continues to challenge through defeat, and it didn't seem like it the first time, but now it was good to see how magnificent a knight was and urges Ain't to accept the challenge. He responds that Varen was fine, but it was forbidden to fight among participants there. The swordsman says it doesn't matter and only fights for honor, and rules mean nothing but losing honor. The sword complains that he would be embarrassed by this knight. Fernan watches from afar and thinks that Varen is doing very well and should continue. At the same time, he jumps from the branch, warning that he will take care of his business. He looks around the lake and thinks that no one was there, and if he searches for mithril, there is no risk of noise. Then he wonders if he should try, as he can finally use his magic, and he really wanted that, thinking he needs to find mithril before Ain't arrives there. That's why he prepared something special, using a summoning spell, and calls his servant. The principle of magical technology was to combine all magic techniques, and the essence of a merchant was to gather a lot of money. Fernan summons a golem with his mana, then says that for now, his name is James. Then he sends him to go find his mithril. Varen shouts that he will not pass until he defeats him, and Ain't thinks that it is totally annoying. But enough is enough, as Varen was acting like a child. The Cowbunder boy only remembers his master telling him to wait at least an hour. Ain't questions what he said, and Varen complains that he likes to do this. He absolutely loves to disturb someone and ruin their life. He was so eager for this, so Ain't should hurry and attack him immediately. The boy kicks him, asking what kind of crazy he was. Varen falls away and says he is indeed crazy, so he should come to him, but Ain't has disappeared. He checks the watch and wonders how long it lasted. An hour and 10 minutes had passed, so Varen was safe. In the cave, Ain't thinks he finally escaped from him, and the rules were about not dueling. But in this cave, he would never find it unless he actively searched, and the ego says it would be obvious. Ain't warns that there is something there, and he feels another energy besides the spiritual herb that was mentioned. The ego tells him to look down, observing the spiritual petals. Ain't says they hit the mark where he needed. At the same time, in the submerged cave, Fernan opens a smile, celebrating that he found the vein of mithril crystals along with his golem James. Up above, Ain't says it is problematic because they found the herbs, but no one is crazy enough to mine with that monster being there. The ego says he did not expect to see a sea dragon there, and it was not a good time, so they should go back until they have another chance. Ain't questions if he fights it, and the ego says he will discover the taste of human flesh. That thing was beyond his level until the cave trembles. Some stones fall on the dragon's body. It awakens and rises, with the ego saying it is bad. Ain't says that now he will have to fight, facing the creature. At this point, he would have to defeat the creature. The ego tells him to stop and get out of there, as it was on another level. The creature advances, and the ego screams for him not to look back and just run. Ain't dodges the charge with a jump. Then he prepares his sword for a spinning cut, hitting its head. The creature moves its tail and strikes the side of Ain's body. He slides in the water, but opens his eye in surprise. The serpent roars once more and forces Ain't to engage in the aura. That creature shot a jet of water from its mouth, and the swordsman tried to block it with his sword. Ain't forced his foot into the ground, being pushed back by the serpent. Both fell to the lower level of the cave. Fernan said there was too much noise and wondered if the water dragon had awakened despite having fed it tons, thinking it was better not to fight the water dragon, since dealing with the demonic possession, Ain't lost the chance to awaken just as the prophecy said. But that is the reason he gave the heart of the holy bird. He would probably be fine, so he warned James that they were getting out of there. Ain't managed to keep himself pressed against a wall. He complained that he almost lost his life, and the ego said that was the reason it had told him to run. Ain't said the dragon came at him as if it wanted to take his life too, but the soul replied that if the ground hadn't broken, he would have been devoured. Ain't questioned if he didn't hold up well, and the ego replied that it was thanks to the heart of the holy bird he received from Fellenberg. But at least the spiritual herbs were fine, and Ain't said he was very far away, so it would take an eternity to climb there. The ego said it felt something strange from another direction, but Ain't felt nothing. Thus they continued walking, and the young man questioned if that was the strange place he mentioned, and there was nothing there, but the spirit replied that there was definitely something there. The ego urged him to hurry and dig it up. Ain't understood the ghost's order and thus removed the stone, coming face to face with a vein of ores that illuminated his face. Outside, Jace asked if Fernan found what he was looking for. Fernan confirmed and asked if nothing happened, and Jace said just a few monsters. The protagonist congratulated the saint and said they would write a contract in writing next time, and he hoped to see him again. Sometime later, Fernan thought he had laid his hands on mithril, and now needed the correct ore to combine it. Mithril has excellent mana absorption and does not shine on its own. He must combine it with another metal to show its potential, but it couldn't be something mediocre. The best metal to combine with mithril was adamant, the hardest of all. But it is rarer than mithril, and he wondered how he would get some if he didn't have money to buy it. A voice from afar called for help. Fernan repeated about adamant while a child ran beneath him, asking for help from some instructor to save her from the wolves. She asked if he was going to continue ignoring her, and Fernan said he should help. But he wanted to know why an elf would be in danger in these lands. The girl jumped towards the tree upon hearing this. Fernan said it was somewhat annoying dealing with them. While the girl conjured a wind spell, eliminating everything in front of her, she questioned if he was happy now, and Fernan wanted to know if she came to him with some ulterior motive. The elf said it was just a coincidence, and the protagonist told her to follow the path. She changed her mind, saying she came with a purpose, and Fernan questioned if it was to build connections with the prince's elector. The girl introduced herself as Aria Fridian, and Fernan said he had heard about how she flirts with other hares. Aria questioned about becoming friends, and he denied, saying the reason was that he was older, and she asked if it wasn't good for the electors to get along. Fernan said it didn't mean they had to be close, and Aria told him that Fridian had recently become electors, replacing the Birchevs. That was the reason to be kind to the other electors, and Fernan questioned if there were none in her family. She asked how an elf could live among others and eat fruits too. Fernan reflected that she didn't think about who would pay. Arya was shameless and brazen beyond herself, so she said she wanted to be friends with all 6 electors. Until she noticed something in her direction, a girl told them to go to the professor quickly, because a water dragon appeared at Lake Farden. Fernan wondered about this, and Arya wanted to know why it appeared suddenly. Then she looked at her senior, but Fernan was already running towards the creature. He thought something went wrong, and there was nothing in the prophecy about the water dragon coming out of it. Wanting to know what happened to Ain't, an assistant instructor ordered all first years to return, and the other instructors to protect them. The ego commented to Ain't that the dragon was there because he had taken the herb and should leave it to the professor to get out of there. Ain't understood and said he would be careful not to attract attention, but the sea dragon appeared behind him. Ain't turns around, but Fernan appears to protect him with his staff, conjuring a massive magic circle in front of him. Stone stakes emerge with his ability and are launched at the dragon. The creature tries to resist, and Fernan reflects that perhaps the dragon is too much. Professor Grad says that his student held the line well and should lead the rest to him, advancing alongside 2 other complementary wizards. The creature turned to flee far away. Fernan reflects that it was strange and wonders if his interference changed the prophecy a bit and if he is destined to save humanity anyway. He still hasn't recovered his investment, so he would be broke if he lost his life, and asks if Ain't is okay. But he sees a look of admiration on the boy's face. Ain't says that his senior came to save him, and Fernan explains that protecting a student is part of the job. But if he is okay, that is all that matters, so he must do his job. Ain't asks if he can take a second to chat with his Sunba, and Fernan tells him to go ahead, but the boy replies that it is something a bit embarrassing. They go to a quiet place, and Fernan says that there is no one around so he can talk. Ain't questions if the Merchant Guild also buys ores, and Fernan says yes, but wants to know if he wants to buy something. Fernan corrects him that no, he is out of money, so he cannot buy anything. The boy responds that he cannot argue with that, and Fellenberg reflects that it slipped from his mouth. Because he has always been gentle with him, he forgot that he would expel him in the future. There is no benefit in provoking. He says that if he hurt Ain't's feelings, he apologizes. It was unintentional and should not be taken to heart, and Ain't says he knew it was a joke. Fernan questions what he has to sell. The boy shows a piece of adamantine in his hand. He was just stressing Ain't to get his hands on it, but he shows adamantine at the same moment. This kind of luck belongs to the protagonist, thinking he must stay calm. Fernan questions if he was trying to sell that to him, as adamantine is not something you find easily, so he wants to know where it came from. Ain't says he prefers not to say where he got it, but promises he did not acquire it through bad means. He got a lot of it, and his space is full. Fernan reflects that it must have been in the cave, and he did not find mithril, but adamantine instead. Wanting to know what kind of cave has both, Ain't says that if he is interested, his conditions are a few. The ego screams for Ain't to be careful because the Fellenbergs are cunning, and if he tries to negotiate, he should deny everything. He finishes explaining his terms, and Fernan responds that he will buy under the conditions, but he wants to know why he is selling this to him, and Ain't says he wants to get rid of it quickly. It is something rare in the world, and he will be targeted from all sides. Armain is not strong enough to protect something like that. Fernan questions if he is, giving the hypothesis that if he takes his life and keeps the adamantine for himself. Ain't jokes that he gave him a holy bird's heart and fought the dragon to save him. The protagonist reflects that this guy really trusts him and has gained major points for saving him. So he says he is right, there is a lot to take care of, and Ain't reflects that he knows. Fernan repeats that he was the one who saved the boy from the water dragon, so if he ever tries to turn him into a beggar, he will want to remember that day. He should never forget that he risked his life to save him, and Ain't responds that it is clear. Fernan turns, warning that he will prepare the contract and contact him again. Ain't wonders what he meant, and the ego responds that he was crazy after seeing adamantine. At home, Hyde announces that he is back. He was away from the ducal state for a while and wants to know if anything happened while he was gone. Fernan asks if he finally returned, surprising Hyde, because he was sitting on a throne of adamantine and mithril. Hyde questions where he got that, and Fernan says he bought it and mined it. The secretary says that even with money, it is impossible to obtain, and if he sells that, his guild will surpass this year's goal. Fernan responds that he will not sell that. Hyde questions what he will do, and the protagonist moves his cup, saying that he will sell a colossal ego golem that moves and lies on its own. Knights have their loyal steeds, and elves have spirits as companions, but merchants have none of that. He questions why they should be the only ones alone, so he decided to correct this absurdity by creating a colossal ego golem. Fernan responds that golems require advanced magical technology and astronomical funds, meaning only the wealthy can dream of this, thinking that especially since a war with demons was coming. In the terrible era when the demons will emerge, it will serve as a bodyguard to protect him and transform into something solid and dependable. Hyde reflects that he doesn't know why a merchant needs a golem, but he would stay quiet since he seemed to be in a good mood. He then questions how big they are talking about regarding a colossal ego golem, and Fernan says it was 10 meters, and it would be something very cool, until his head starts to feel pain. He reflects that it was another damned prophecy. Hyde takes his young master to rest and tells him to bite the thermometer. Vernon says he is not sick, but his servant asks how many times he has screamed because his head suddenly hurt. Then he goes to check the temperature, and he must endure it now, because it must be a side effect of being struck by lightning. Vernon reflects that he had another prophecy where a contractor for a demon attacks Ain't at the yacht club. This club is one of the social groups of the academy where only nobles enter. Vernon was also there to make connections. That was not all, but he was the one who suggested a simple tea party on a luxurious yacht at sea. But of all times, the moment was convenient for everyone when a monster appeared and the contractor sneaked onto the yacht. Being a member of his company, he wonders if Fellenberg was involved in this, because there was a traitor among humanity, and he seemed more incompetent than he expected. Vernon wonders why he had several people looking for his adamant, but it was not surprising that Ain't would bring his ruin, since anyone would have thought he made a contract in that situation. Hyde is startled to see the temperature, then puts a bag of ice on his head. He says that the young duke's fever was high and he must call a doctor immediately. But he heard there was a guest in the company. However, it would be better to send him away, and Vernon says he was not expecting anyone. However, he decides to go because it smelled like money. Coming face to face with Professor Grad, he questions if he wants to sell the body of the sea dragon that appeared during the exam, and Grad confirms, warning that everyone said Fellenberg would make a low offer, but he does not think so. Vernon reflects that he was useful in various parts and asks if it was okay to approach a student this way. Grad questions who would be crazy enough to go against a Fellenberg and wants to know the reason for asking Rosalia to be an assistant. She was very sticky with the rules, and next time she should come to him. Moreover, it was an official acquisition request from the academy, and he was there as a leader. He contacted the Fellenbergs, and they told him to talk to him, and Vernon says he was only interested in a part. Grad complains that he will not sell in parts and must buy completely, because they were talking about a sea dragon and no part was bad, and Vernon thinks that is true. The bones and teeth are extremely durable and make good equipment, with eyes and blood rich in mana and scales perfect for armor. Buying everything would be good, but he was doing business and must maximize profit. Grad says he would sell to another family, but Vernon reminds him that the creatures captured in exercises always go to the professor's research fund, questioning if it wouldn't be good for him to sell for a good price. Grad says he wants a good price for what he desires and questions what he needs. Vernon tells him that he only wants exclusive rights to sell ships to the Academy. Every time they buy a ship, they must buy from the Golden Turtle Company. Grad questions why the Academy would need this and if that was really all he wanted. Vernon replies that absolutely yes, thinking that there was no need now, but after the incident of the prophecy, the Academy recognized the importance of naval combat. Naturally, they will prevent a ship from taking damage and deal with massive repair costs. In other words, it was a highly profitable business. In a bookstore, a girl asks for a basic cookbook. She checked the cooking section but did not find it, and a librarian says they probably sold it. But he would check the stock for a moment. He opens the door and starts looking at some books. A demonic aura forms behind him and begins to report. They have just confirmed that Ain't Armian never found Varen Kalbunder, and in his plan, he should have gone after him. But it seemed that someone interfered along the way, and he did not fully identify it as the traces completely disappeared. The librarian asks if there is no way to find it, and that is what he was saying. The creature responds that it will try other methods and find out, but the man tells it to forget because it was going too far. For now, it should focus on the next plan. It was strange, and if Kalbunder really fought with it, there was no way not to feel the energy, and it wonders why the Academy didn't mention it. The traces disappeared, and it wanted to know if it was all just a coincidence. Or perhaps it had been intentional because of someone. The creature asks if anyone knows of its existence, but the man says it is impossible and the world is very quiet. He assumes it is a coincidence and will be more careful for now. Since they have little power, if its existence is revealed, it will cause a backlash in their plan. Above that, eliminating Ain't Armian is his top priority, and its growth rate would be beyond imagination. He doesn't know the reason, but it is the same curve that the first emperor had. For the plan to be complete, it would be a problem if Ain't Armian reaches its full power, so its servant must not fail a second time. He says he will keep that in mind and disappears. Then the librarian leaves and calls his client, informing her that he found the basic cooking book. She thanks him and says she hopes he has a good day. In a restaurant, Vernon questions if Luina felt demonic energy. She says it was 3 days ago after dinner when she was with Bella. Vernon asks if it was Bella Hohen from the 19th place, and she confirms. The young man questions how the situation was. Luina says that 3 days ago, Bella offered a duel and said she felt her skills had improved and needed to confirm it. Normally, they fight with wooden swords, but this time she suggested real swords. She doesn't know if Bella took some elixir, but she was extremely confident. But it wasn't just an enhancement, as Bella's sword was heavier than before. Her skills definitely improved, managing to land a hit on Luina. But it wasn't just her strength, even her body became so fast that she could dodge Luina's strikes. Luina says she was different from before, being faster and stronger. Bella responds that she has recently felt full of power and more in control of her body. Hearing something like that from her makes her feel better. But she releases her aura, warning that she will go again. Fernan questions if the girl lost in the end, but Luina responds that it isn't over yet. Bella used her fencing style that strengthens the weight and power of the sword, which is a destructive force compared to other fencing styles. But due to the size and weight of the sword, there is a clear limit to close combat. At that moment, both felt something strange. Bella makes an absurd cut to defend against Luina's blast. She steps back and grips the sword tightly, while Bella curses the situation, saying that she still can't control it properly, and Luina says that's how it happened. Fernan asks if it really was demonic energy, and she confirms, because even if it was just for a moment, it was definitely demonic aura. But Bella was completely fine, and even after the duel, there was nothing abnormal. Unlike Varen, she was totally controlled and physically well. Maybe she made a mistake, but Fernan questions if he wants to check the case. Luina says yes, and Bella is her best friend, so she can't see her becoming something bad. She thought Fernan could be of help in some way, and the young man responds that he doesn't have a solid method, but he will try in his own way. But there was something he was curious about, asking if the candy was good, and Luina replies that it is. In another place, Fernan repeats all the places Bella goes during her routine. It was like Varen's bastard, and there is no suspicious contact with anyone. Moreover, she has no traumatic experiences and has good relationships with others, with no openings for demonic energy in her heart. But if Luina told the truth and she has demonic power, there was only one thing in common, where neither of them made a contract, wanting to know if the energy can be used without them noticing and without a contract. Maybe Luina made a mistake, and it wasn't demonic energy. Suddenly, he feels an extremely strong headache, seeing a scene where the sky is blood red with a strong demonic energy. He saw Ain't with a troubled expression. That scene looked familiar, with the ego saying that everyone was acting strange. The demonic energy appeared along with Andromalius close to awakening. That vision was no different from hell, and he wonders if it was a moment before Andromalius descended. The ego says it was demonic energy, and everyone was infected, but they needed to know what was happening. Following Gardner's hints, Ain't injected mana into the students' bodies. The ego says they have been infecting the students for a long time during their daily lives. It was something that no one noticed and used for a long time, since most of the energy was wasted. Fernan reflects that he needs some kind of shell to be able to explode this. They need to be amplifying the mana. So Gardner points backward, showing the magic circle that was activating the demonic energy. Ain't needed to destroy that existence, and thus in Fernan's mind, the scene changed. Lunia screams Ain't's name and says that Bella was infected by demonic energy. Fernan wonders if there was really something inside her. Ain't thinks that this was not a normal amplification circle, but rather one of summoning, and those who caused this were trying to summon a demon. Some creatures emerged from the portal, and the only thing echoing in Fernan's mind was that the demons would return to this world. He suddenly wakes up and sighs in surprise at witnessing all this, but he says he doesn't have time, so he runs to the door shouting Luina's name. The girl questions if she was safe, and if she was really infected. Something bad would happen if they found out, but Fernan tells her she doesn't know that. He will make sure that she didn't talk to a demon and took a life because of it, and Luina thanks him. Fernan reflects that he needs her alive since she will act as proof. It was good for him since he knows that Luina needs to like him throughout the continent. He will prove that he has demonic energy inside his body first, and Bella questions if Luina waited too long as the class just ended. Luina denies and says they were just waiting. Fernan interrupts by touching her forehead and saying that inside her head, there were demons and they need to take their lives. So she should do what he says now, but Bella denies, asking if he was sick. Fernan says it wasn't a joke and they don't know about the energy inside her, but she would lose her sanity over time, and then the executors would appear. Bella questions if he was threatening her. Fernan denies because he was speaking the truth, but the girl says she was perfectly fine. Luina grabs his arm, asking if she can do it the way Fernan says and pleads about it. Bella agrees just because she asked, while Fernan reflects that he would knock her out if she refused. The girl says she will do everything he says, but in return, he should apologize to both of them if he proves he doesn't have demonic energy, and Fernan questions why Luina was included. Bella says it was to persuade little Luina, and the protagonist agrees, warning that she must take him to the places she visits because he needs to know if she has contact with demonic energy. Luina questions if they hadn't looked there, but Fernan whispers that she wasn't helping in this case. Fernan thinks that he didn't find anything suspicious alone, and thus goes to a location but without success. In the training hall, he complains that it was a lamentable place, All the places from the dormitory to the cafeteria are normal. In the librarian says that she really came today. Lunia comments that Bella loves romance books. Fernan thinks it was a common pastime, and it might be stranger if he could easily find the traces. But there is some trace there, and it didn't seem to be the place. Wondering if it could be a certain object, the librarian says it was good to meet Mr. Fernan. That young man questions how he knows him, and a librarian replies that he was a merchant after all, and he had bought some items from him, but interrupts the conversation to offer a book, because he had something perfect for him. Fernan denies, saying he has all the books he wants at home, and the librarian understands but says it was sad. Luina calls for Fernan, and he says goodbye to the man. He understands, releasing his energy while saying he must always come back. In a different room, Bella questions if this cafeteria was inside the guild since she had never seen it, and Fernan tells her it was reserved for guests, and it was the best place to avoid prying eyes. He opens the door, and Lunia makes a sad face, seeing Jace, who says it's good to find them, saying he blesses them with the faith of mana, and Bella screams that she believes. Fernan questions if the saint brought what he asked for, and he confirms, but there was no refund and no exchanges once he uses it. Bella questions what he was doing and why he was there. Fernan tells her that Jace will prove that there is demonic energy inside her. She questions how he wants to do that. Jace explains that they prepared for this type of scenario, and there was a prophecy that demons would return to the world. There was nothing more precise than artifacts that would detect demons or demonic energy. Jace questions what her name is, and the girl introduces herself as Bella Hone, a second-year knight. Jace asks if his senior can hold this ball with both hands, as the mana will enter her body and examine it. Lunia questions if Fernan is sure, and he says he trusts Jace. Bella seems apprehensive, and Jace tells her not to be nervous, whispering that she can't believe she was infected and only came because she was paid. She should just do what she feels comfortable with. Bella puts her hands out and says she just wants to end this and have her apologies. A strong light shines, causing Jace to open his fox-like eyes. He comments that the color of the ball has changed. Bella asks what it means and if it was about not having demonic energy, but Fernan replies that it was the opposite. The color of the ball changes when it detects demonic energy. Bella says it can't be possible, and Fernan tries to calm her down. But Jace starts to recite a prayer to the dragon god to purge the evil, conjuring a fireball to try to send Bella to hell. The girl screams Jace's name, and thus the sphere falls to the ground. Luina was able to defend against the magic with her sword. Jace shouts that he will take her life. Moments later, he summarizes that the students are being infected by the energy at the academy, and he wants to know if Bella really didn't encounter a demon. Fernan replies that he has been keeping an eye on her for the past few days, and there was nothing suspicious, and Jace says it would be terrible if he is right. It would be better to ask for help, but Fernan denies it because demons will hide if this is published. Jace must listen carefully because demons cannot know that they have knowledge of this. He has a plan, and if helped, he will be able to eliminate everyone in an ambush. Jace repeats this and says to just send what needs to be done. Fernan questions if he can make the demonic energy inside Bella disappear. The saint asks her to give her hand, but Bella seems to suspect he is trying to take her life. He says he will only purify the energy inside her body and will not do anything else. Bella screams that he is a liar and has crazy eyes, in addition to being scared. Luina shouts for Fernan to do something. The young man repeats that Bella is not a bad person, and if he doesn't stop that look, he would have half of the work out of order. Jace analyzes this and returns with his fox-like gaze while asking for forgiveness. He asks her to please give her hand, because the order will eliminate all who are bad and demons, but will not harm innocents and victims. Bella questions if this magic really purifies demonic energy, and Jace confirms, because he would not hurt her touching her hand. He warns that there will be a bit of burning inside. Now Jace says he has cleaned all the bad energy with Bella lying on the ground unconscious. A few minutes later, Luna comments that the building was sturdy as it did not collapse with Jace's spell. Fernan says he built it to withstand shockwaves, but wants to know if Bella is okay. Luna confirms because her friend will wake up soon. Then he should carry her to her dormitory, but Fernan asks to wait. He pours wine into Bella's mouth and says it will be less suspicious if she seems drunk. There is nothing wrong with being careful with demons, and Luna replies that it would be bad for her image. Fernan tells her to cover Bella's face with a cloth in that case. Luina thanks him for the help, and the protagonist reflects that this solves his business. He just needs to use Jace to find all humans infected with demonic energy and purify them. This way he will be able to minimize the chaos, as well as prevent what was coming from the demons in the best case scenario. First, he will prepare things for the yacht club meeting and thinks he has investigated the suspicious people from the guild, finding one who had become an employee and doesn't know if they were working with demons. This was the most natural scenario where he thinks it is not related to this, and it was not difficult to plan when he knows the future. If things go according to plan, Ain't should trust him 100%. It won't be long before he considers him a friend. The next day, he goes to the port with Hyde, opening a smile and announcing that it is time to fish a little. The director says he heard from Professor Grad and summarizes that he wants exclusive rights to sell boats. They should say they sold the Sea Dragon for a good price, but exclusive rights were too much and questions about one more condition. In exchange for guaranteeing exclusive rights for the Academy for the next 20 years, he will give the Sea Dragon materials for a reasonable price. Fernan reflects that the carcasses of magical beasts are more valuable if left untouched. Normally he would not accept this, but now he could not back down, so he says he will add this condition to the contract, thinking that the boat business at the Academy would bring even greater benefits. Outside, Hyde congratulates Fernan, but the young man says it wasn't necessary since it wasn't his first contract. Hyde questions why he insisted on exclusive rights, and that requires family support. Honestly, he doesn't think the Duke will approve, and it didn't seem good, but Fernan replies that it wasn't for now, but there will be an opportunity soon. Hyde doubts that, but the protagonist asks where the list of yacht employees was. His secretary says he left it on the table, and Fernan questions if there were any suspects, but there were none. This made sense since if they were easily discovered, they wouldn't be demons. This time, Ain't will handle everything, so there's no need to worry, but it would be bad if the boat broke. The protagonist of the prophecy would be completely on his side, and it was time to check the result of his fishing. In the library, the ego asks how Ain't was, and he says he was fine, since thanks to the spiritual herbs, the magic of the holy bird was fully absorbed. Gardner says that was good, and they should replenish his magic along with the sale of adamant for money. It was really good to have a wealthy ally, and Ain't says that speaking of which, he wants to know what Gardner thinks about making Fernan his company, surprising the ego. Ain't repeats that he was rich, and it would be better to have him by his side, but Gardner says it wasn't a bad idea. They are not idiots and will realize how serious the situation was, so Ain't replies that it would be better to show Fernan in person. But he has never seen a demon or vile creature before, so he isn't sure, and Gardner responds that demons exist and will reveal themselves. Even if he keeps company, he shouldn't trust completely. Fellenbergs once made deals with demons. They are the kind of people who don't care who they deal with, as long as they make money, and they are known for that. In the end, it was bad to deal with them, but Ain't denies that, saying that his son Fernan would never do something like that. He notices something different and quickly tells the ego to hide. Veloci Viendirk, the best student of the Knights, appears and calls for Ain't. The young man questions why he was looking for him, and Veloci says he got an invitation to the yacht club. It said he could bring a guest and thought of taking Ain't. Veloci says he needs a recommendation from a member to enter, and since he is an Armian, he was within the qualifications. Ain't repeats this, and Gardner comments that if he was joining rich kids, Schwaben must be involved. This guy was trying to drag him into trouble, and everyone was trying to keep their distance from him thanks to the Schwaben. Ain't thinks it would be better not to go and tries to thank him, but Gardner tells him to wait a second. If it was the yacht club, they must go to the ocean, so he should go since he had an arrangement left by his ancestor. Veloci asks if he will go, and Ain't confirms he just needs to know the date and time later. He accepts and turns to leave, while Gardner says that if everything goes as planned, he will make use of the Sinanwang arrangement there. Ain't questions how many of these exist, and he says that the more, the better for dealing with demons. Elsewhere, Fernan delivers an invitation to the yacht club to Lunia. The girl says that to receive an invitation from someone who tried to block her participation, she has lived a lot for this. She says Bella is also a member of the yacht club, and Fernan looks a bit confused. Fernan reflects that he was blocking Luina from being a member and should pressure her using the debt. But honestly, there were less qualified people than Luina as members of the club, and she questions why he changed his mind out of nowhere. Fernan says he found traces of a vile creature. He received information that something will happen at the club, so he set a trap, and Lunia says that was perfect, and she will never forgive what they did to Bella, because it was time to have her revenge, and Fernan congratulates her good attitude. He asks if Bella has woken up, but the girl denies it even though a whole day has passed. Both wonder if Jace burned her out of anger. Fernan stands up and says it was lunchtime, so they should go. Walking away while Varen appears. He sits on the ground and looks down nervously, wondering how it ended up like this. Because he, the proud heir of the Calbunders and once the second best in the combat department, was defeated by the seed of the Armian in order to become the head of the family. Then he was abandoned by the prince he considered his support, by Veloci, whom he wanted to be friends with and who currently received the invitation to the yacht club that he wanted so much to enter. That spot should have been his, and he should have gotten an invitation. Everything was going badly thanks to that bastard Armian, but someone is approaching. Ain't asks if Varen wants to have lunch with him.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.